Hi, Alan Stratton from As Wood Turns. As I make this video, the ornament challenge is in full swing. I'm awaiting more ornaments, but there's a good response so far. But still, there's plenty of room. But I decided to make an ornament also for this season. And I saw a picture of one like this, and I just had to. That's a sort of inspiration that comes from the ornament challenge. But it's interesting because it is a sphere hollowed with a finial, but inside it is special iridescent paint and then a swirl of rub and buff gold. So it's an experiment, but I think it's neat. It can be scaled up or down. This is on the large side, so let's turn it. So for this project, I grabbed a leftover cylinder of cherry, then measured the diameter at 2.75 inches. Therefore, that times 0.293 or 0.808 is the length from the top corner of the cylinder to the corner of an octagon that contains a sphere of diameter 2.75 inches. The other key measure is diameter times 0.414 or 1.139 inches is the length of each side of the octagon, again containing the sphere. After marking out the cylinder, including the top side, I can start relieving the long side, in effect cutting a tenon whose width is the octagon side. Then make a 45-degree cut from corner line to corner line on both ends. After dividing each side in half and then in half again, I cut the octagon into a decahexagon, which, by the way, still contains the sphere that is 2.75 inches in diameter. Then round off by eye into a sphere, but being careful not to cut away too much. It is tempting to go for perfection at this step, but perfection is much easier if you wait a bit later. After trimming the cup faceplate, I can mount the sphere with the old north-south running east-west or 90 degrees off axis. The important thing now is for the sphere to mount securely to the cup center, even if imperfectly. Then gently attack the ghosts at the top. Any tool will do. I like my bowl gouge with a gentle shear cut. When it is more round in the trimming zone, I rotate the sphere again 90 degrees so that the newly trimmed section goes into the faceplate. The previous cuts made it somewhat football-shaped. Then attack the ghosts again. I also drew a new equator line before the rotation. I want to leave the equator if possible, but if not, it will result in a slightly smaller sphere. Again, mark an equator. Again and again attack the ghosts. It turns out that I needed an extra rotation to be comfortable. My end sphere measures 2.6 inches, so I lost 0.15 inches in diameter. I've done better. Then, following the same rotation scheme, start sanding with 80 grit. Don't skip 80 grit is equivalent to another finer gouge or scraper. 3 rotations at each grit up through 400 grit. If this sphere were not to be incorporated into another broader context, I would add finish and be done. But not this time. Time to pull out my donut chuck. I like this design. It has 3 bolts. This time I used a cup center that fits into the hole in the base plate just like my earlier cup chuck. The difference is that the top plate captures the sphere. I also 3D printed a pin center that fits into the 1/4 inch hole in the sphere to keep it aligned. On the other end, for the top plate, instead of turning a bushing, I 3D printed a shaped bushing for a 2.6 inch sphere so that it would expose more of the sphere through the bushing. I love the interchangeable pieces at each end of the donut chuck. Next, the sphere is mounted in the donut chuck using the cup center on the base and the 2.6 bushing at the top plate. All that I need is to drill a 1/4 inch hole about 1/2 inch deep. To complement this hole, I flip the sphere around end for end. At the base is the pin center, fitting the hole just drilled. Now to accurately drill another 1/4 inch hole, about 1/2 inch deep. Now for hollowing. First I flatten the target area, then hollow first with a bowl gouge, then with a round nose scraper. Finally sand the hollow through all the sandpaper grits. For a finish, I'm applying Folk Art Color Shift acrylic paint and let it dry. For a flourish, I take some rub and buff on my finger and swipe a swirl. For finials, I selected a piece of hard maple and mounted it between centers. This is for both the top and bottom finials. Rather than cutting a tenon on both ends, I'm cutting a tenon in the middle. This is 1/4 inch diameter, very much on the fragile side. After sizing the tenon with sharpened end wrenches, I shape the curve from the tenon to the first feature on both ends and sand this area, since it will be next to the chuck as I complete each tenon. The top finial is now mounted to the chuck where I can drill for a hanger in the top. I rough some wood away with a spindle gouge, but do the serious shaping with a skew. With the bottom finial mounted, I can start shaping it, but in a moment of inattentiveness, it broke. No more tenon. Fortunately, I had already rounded the wood. I inserted the wood backwards into the chuck while I cut a new tenon and shaped and sanded the initial curve as before. Now back to where I was before, only shorter. I have to cut back the bottom while it is unsupported. Easy does it until I have a flat at the end for live center pressure. Then on to shape the finial, most of all, with a skew working from the live center end. That is also the thinnest feature. I want each feature to be slightly smaller, going from the base to the tip. Then sand to 320 grit paper. Now to mark some burn lines with the skew and then burn them with a wire. After this, I can sand with 400 grit sandpaper, then part off the tip from the live center before sanding the top. Finally, apply shellac friction polish to the entire finial, now that there is no lateral pressure to break it. After final finish and polishing, I mount a hanger and call my ornament finished. When I saw a picture like this one, I just had to turn one for myself. I still like it. It is one of my larger ornaments, but it is worth turning. It could be scaled smaller or larger. A great ornament project. I wish someone would enter one like this in the Ornament Challenge. Now, please give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to my website as well as on YouTube. When you subscribe to my website, I email when there's a new video. This is more reliable than YouTube's wandering recommendations. Please tell your friends about my weekly videos. I appreciate your comments and questions. Please wear your full face shield whenever the lathe is running. Yes, I'm nagging. It is worth it if I can save one of you some pain.